data.
FOIAism and how it changed.
Welcome back. I call to order the June 2023 meeting of the Mission Fulfillment Committee of the University of Minnesota Board of Regents. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to those who are joining us via the live stream video and those attending here in the boardroom. Let me welcome back our student representative today, Riley Tuff from the Duluth campus. And Sarah Davis is back. Welcome back, Sarah, on Zoom from the Twin Cities campus. Thanks for being here, and let's go to our agenda. Let's see. I'm going to welcome to Vice Provost McMaster and Interim Vice Chancellor Haitapelto, who will join Provost Croson in presenting on system-wide enrollment coordination efforts. And President Gable, would you like to start us off, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair Davenport, Vice Chair Ruth Johnson, and members of the committee. So system-wide enrollment has been a focus of the board predating me, and certainly has been a focus of this administration since 2019. And this system-wide enrollment coordination update highlights how the university's commitment to student success has been unfolding, and with attention to attracting, educating, and graduating students who represent the diversity, talent, workforce, and citizenship needs of the future across our system. So when we developed the strategic plan, the university prioritized this work, and through the work of the system-wide Strategic Enrollment Council, which reports to the provost, we've been addressing all 5 campuses in certain focused areas, which include promoting cooperation around strategic enrollment management and admissions, recruiting and retaining diverse students and reducing their disparities, improving retention and graduation rates, closing gaps, expanding scholarship opportunities, reducing student debt, and increasing aid targeted to students with specific and demonstrated need. So this is an overall coordination which reflects the broader commitment to systemness, touches many of the other areas of our values and our strategic plan, in particular in Commitment 4 and in Commitment 1. And the work of the council is greatly appreciated and is represented here today by Bob McMaster, Vice Provost and Dean of Undergraduate Education for the Twin Cities campus, and Amy Haitapelto, who's the Interim Executive Vice Chancellor for UMD. So with appreciation to them, Madam Chair, I will defer for their presentation.
Please.
Great. Thank you, Chair Davenport and members of the board. Before we begin, I wanted to take a moment to thank President Gable for her 4-year commitment to undergraduate education. From the moment she arrived in July of 2019, she has provided great support to my office, Office of Undergraduate Education, into enhancing undergraduate student success. I've greatly appreciated the many terrific conversations that we've had over the years around undergraduate education, and we'll miss these conversations very much. Best of luck, and please tell Pittsburgh to take it easy on Syracuse. I also wanted to mention to the board some national level initiatives that will directly impact undergraduate education and enrollment in the coming years. The first is the Boyer II report on the future of undergraduate education at research universities. It's entitled The 2030 Blueprint for Undergraduate Education at U.S. Research Universities. Last month, I circulated to the board a link to this report and some summary slides reviewing the major parts of Boyer II. This report is already having some national level impact. It's a very important document. Later this month, in fact, in probably a week or 10 days, we will hear the decision from the Supreme Court on the future of affirmative action based on the Harvard and North Carolina cases. Although we don't know what the ruling will be, most feel the court will prohibit the use of race in admissions and perhaps financial aid decisions. This would have a significant and likely negative impact on our ability to maintain the diversity of our undergraduate student body, and we're watching this very carefully. We have a small committee that's meeting on a regular basis. The third item involves changes to the federal Pell program. The rules around the criteria for who gets Pell are changing. And the EFC, that's the metric expected family contribution that we rely heavily on, will shift to a new metric, the Student Aid Index, SAI. This will necessitate many changes to our financial aid distribution and packaging. So I guess the point here is we see some choppy waters ahead in this space. This afternoon, we'll be reviewing the history of the System Enrollment Council, discuss the national and regional enrollment picture, provide details on the myriad system collaborations we've established, look at some of the recent financial aid initiatives, and discuss our current joint marketing efforts. A quick note on our definition of enrollment management. Enrollment management involves admissions, financial aid, the registrar, student success, not just admissions. It's a holistic process of recruiting, enrolling, supporting, and graduating students in a timely way. A bit on the history of the Enrollment Council. Although the System Enrollment Council was formalized around 2016, there were previous efforts to bring together those with expertise in enrollment. Today, the Council is functioning extremely well with a strong spirit of camaraderie. The Council consists of 2 to 3 members from each campus who have responsibility for enrollment, and an executive committee with the 4 vice chancellors and the Twin Cities vice provost and dean. The Council meets nearly every month to discuss all kinds of issues. We have a summer retreat, and we provide regular updates to the board as we're doing right now. The chair and the vice chair rotate among the executive committee. The Enrollment Council discusses enrollment targets, financial aid strategies, student success best practices, curricular cooperation, and in particular, in certain years, legislative initiatives. Okay. The next section of this report will provide details on the current enrollment landscape, both regional and national. This map, which illustrates the continued migration of Hawaii and Alaska towards the U.S. mainland, depicts the problematic nature of the national enrollment trends that we're facing. All sectors of the country, aside from the southeast U.S., are trending downward, with significant 5% declines in the upper Middle West and East Coast. Aside from California, our campuses recruit most of our students from Minnesota and the reciprocity states, which of course are Wisconsin and North and South Dakota. We actually have reciprocity with Manitoba. We don't get many students from Manitoba. And we also recruit heavily in Illinois. These are places that will all be facing significant high school enrollment challenges in the next decade. For the Twin Cities campus, we maintain 8 regional recruiters to help build our national level efforts. The troubling national enrollment trends are depicted on this graph. Over the last 4 years, since 2017, the enrollment at 2-year colleges has dropped by 27% nationally, at public 4-year colleges by 6%, and at private 4-year colleges by 5.5%. As we have discussed before, the flagship R1 universities have, for the most part, been shielded from these enrollment declines, and many around the country have seen slight increases. But the drop at the 2-year colleges is dramatic and impacts the health of our transfer pathways. In February, we provided the board with a complete update on transfer student enrollments and some of the challenges. You probably remember that. The Chronicle of Higher Education produced a recent monograph on the looming enrollment crisis that documents some of the national challenges that the country is facing in this space. This graph shows the Minnesota projections, where our cliff is expected will be experienced in the early 2030s. According to the WICHE data, that's where we get the data from, we will reach a peak of Minnesota high school graduates in a few years, then a decline. There is another uptick in 2032 before the serious cliff is experienced out in 2033, as you can see from the graph. These models tend to shift with more current data, but the probability of this significant enrollment cliff remains with each model iteration. In terms of the trends for Twin Cities and Greater Minnesota, which are depicted on this graph, the number of Twin Cities metro graduates crossed over Greater Minnesota in 2006. And since that point in time, the gap has been widening. Interestingly, there have been some recent increases in Greater Minnesota graduates, likely a result of growth in places like Rochester, urban, but counted in Greater Minnesota. And all of us have a significant attentiveness to make sure we're enrolling students from Greater Minnesota. The enrollment trends for the Minnesota higher education sectors are shown here in the pre-pandemic yellow and pandemic maroon bars. Reflecting national trends that we just reviewed, the Minnesota State two-year campuses have experienced nearly a 17% decline in enrollment over that period, while the Minnesota State four-year institutions have experienced a 19% decrease. The Minnesota private colleges are down approximately 6%. For the University of Minnesota, we experienced a 1.2% decrease before the pandemic and a 6% decrease during and after the pandemic. This similar graph depicts the same data, but we have disaggregated the enrollment trends for the system in the Twin Cities campus, where the Greater Minnesota campuses have experienced a greater decline in enrollment, as we've seen again with national level trends. As mentioned earlier, nationally, the R1 flagships have tended to fare better with these enrollment challenges. This slide depicts, for those students who applied to the University of Minnesota for fall 2022, these are the most recent data we have, where they actually enrolled, the various sectors. The first row provides system-wide data, and the other rows show the enrollment trends for each of the campuses. For the system, 44% enrolled at one of the admitted campuses that they applied to, 20% at another Minnesota institution, either Minnesota State or one of the privates, and 28% enrolled at an out-of-state institution, either reciprocity or what we call NR-NR, non-resident, non-reciprocity. NR-NR are the national students from New York, Texas, Georgia, Washington, so on. What this table does not tell us is that the percentage of Minnesota high school graduates who do not attend any college at all has now risen to close to 40%. That's really an alarming number given the long-term commitment to education, higher education in this state. This represents a major challenge for us as a state. And this illustration shows visually the results of the previous slide. If there were too many numbers there, again, 44% of those who applied to a U of M campus enrolled within the system, and you can see the other sectors. One of the major impact 2025 measures is increasing the percent of Minnesota high school graduates that actually attend the University of Minnesota system up to a 12% number. For many years, the U of M system has consistently enrolled 10% of the Minnesota high school graduating class. That is all 5 campuses. For fall 2021, that percentage did jump close to the target of 12%. It was up around 11.5%, but fell back in 2022. But remember, in fall 2021, the Twin Cities enrolled its largest freshman class in 50 years to nearly 7,000 freshmen, which bumped us close to the 12% range in that year. That's still the goal, 12%. The impact metric on developing a comprehensive system-wide strategic plan is now considered complete. In the fall of 2021, the System Enrollment Council provided the enrollment plan to the board, and upon receiving feedback from the board, provided an updated plan in the spring of 2022, 2 separate presentations. Additionally, during the 2022-23 academic year, which we just completed, each campus provided a comprehensive enrollment update to the board. At the core of the work of the System Council is a series of collaborations, and we're going to detail several of these below. One of the primary areas of collaboration among the campuses is obviously around enrollment and admissions. First, our 5 admissions directors meet on a regular basis to exchange best practices and current enrollment trends. Second, 4 of our campuses now participate in the MOHE, Minnesota Office of Higher Education, direct admit program that allows students from some select high schools to be auto-admitted to a campus. The Twin Cities does not participate in that. The other campuses do. Third, we now have created a shared technology position to help all campuses implement and manage Slate, which is the platform used for application processing across the system. There is also a coordinated admissions program for interacting with high school counselors. All 5 of us participate in that. A new initiative involves a project to re-enroll students who have left the university without completing a degree. We estimate that thousands of students have left without completion, over 6,000 in the past 4 years. Some might have finished a degree at another institution, some may no longer need a college degree, but many might still be interested in returning to finish the University of Minnesota degree. If only 10% of these students are interested, that would enable hundreds of additional enrollments across the system. We're working with a company that specializes in returning these students and finalizing a contract as we speak. Finally, there are efforts to increase our international enrollments, which will be described shortly. One of our signature cooperative programs in admissions is called Share My App, where students who apply to the Twin Cities campus are given the opportunity to share their application with other campuses across the system. They receive a letter from the Twin Cities, would you like to be considered at Morris, Duluth, Rochester, or Crookston? This graph depicts a number of applications that were shared over the past 3 admissions cycles. Although the numbers are not large, the result is that students do confirm at other campuses with this program. The Twin Cities campus also shares both their wait list that we generate each spring in the admissions cycle and deny list with the other campuses during the spring. With the emergence of the Common Application, which is kind of a whole nother conversation, where students can apply to multiple campuses nationally, the need for Share My App has now somewhat diminished over what it was in the past. I'm now going to turn the presentation over to Amy Heitapelto, Interim Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs at Duluth, who's going to discuss our system-wide curricular collaborations.
Thank you, Vice Provost McMaster. I would also like to thank President Joan Gable for her 4-year commitment to system enrollment coordination and collaboration. Thank you. And also thank you, Chair Davenport, for the opportunity to share this update with the board. So I'll go ahead and continue. Another primary area around collaboration in the University of Minnesota system campuses is through curricular pathways that allow students to more easily transition into various programs, often between campuses. For instance, this slide provides examples of collaborative curricular pathway opportunities for both Crookston and Duluth students. Students can spend 2 years at the Crookston campus and then transition for their last 2 years to the Twin Cities to complete the BS in Mortuary Science. Through the VetFast program, students can begin on the Crookston campus, gain early acceptance to veterinary medicine, and transition to the Twin Cities, and ultimately earn both a BS and DVM in 7 years. And I should note that VetFast is available for all campuses, so that particular one happens to be a system program. Some are, some aren't, and each campus highlighted a few for me, so I wanted to note that on VetFast. Similarly, at the Duluth campus, there are pathways for select majors within the Swenson College of Science and Engineering and College of Education and Human Service Professions to an expedited 18-month Masters of Nursing program. UMD also has several pathways on its campus for students involving the College of Pharmacy on the Duluth campus, so an opportunity to earn both an MBA and a PharmD and a 3+4 pathway into the PharmD on the Duluth campus. The next slide provides examples of collaborative system curricular pathway opportunities for both Morris and Rochester students. So you can see Morris also participates in the pathway for an expedited 18-month Masters of Nursing program. Morris has a pathway for students in select majors to transition to the Doctorate in Pharmacy program in the College of Pharmacy on the Twin Cities campus. And additionally, forthcoming is a 4+1 integrated degree program to the Master of Science of Applied Economics on the Twin Cities campus that facilitates economic students' ability to earn both a bachelor's and a master's degree in 5 years. As noted, many of these pathway examples are on multiple campuses and some are system-wide. More pathways that facilitate student transition between campuses for degree programs are in development. This collaborative coordination between campuses and programs enhances students' ability to meet diverse career goals while remaining also within the University of Minnesota system. In the next slide, the system is also engaged in ongoing international student recruitment efforts through international degree completion partnership programs. There are approximately 24 partnerships with different international universities in multiple countries, as shown, that are collaborative pathways between those institutions and University of Minnesota campuses. These provide for degree completion at the University of Minnesota. Almost all campuses have at least some unique international pathways, although the majority, when I collected them, were of the international degree pathway partnerships at this time are with the Twin Cities and Duluth campuses. Most involve a variation of some time spent at the international institution and then transferred to a University of Minnesota campus to complete a specific degree program where requirements have been carefully and clearly articulated. More are in development at multiple campuses. These programs, I should note, are distinct from student and faculty exchange or study abroad, although many of these partnership universities also participate with the University of Minnesota and other areas such as these as well. Work is also continuing in exploration of additional opportunities for international student recruitment with external vendors. And now I'd like to turn the presentation back over to Vice Provost McMaster.
It is important that all the higher education system sectors are connected in the state of Minnesota. The state of Minnesota has established, through formal statute, the P20 Council that includes the 4 major sectors, including the Minnesota Department of Education, Office of Higher Education, University of Minnesota, and Minnesota State, but also includes a vast network of institutions that have an interest in education: the principals, superintendents, Minnesota Association of Charter Schools, the Citizens League, and the Minnesota Business Partnership, to name just a few. One of the major objectives of the P20 Council is to support the state of Minnesota's goal of 70% of all Minnesotans having some type of credential, a certificate, an associate degree, a bachelor's degree, a higher degree. The council also has established 4 major priority areas that we've been working on for the last 4 years, and these include data use and capacity, credentials of value, dual credit opportunities, and financial aid and literacy. The council is currently chaired by the U of M, which rotates every 2 years. A third metric we'll mention is around fiscal stewardship, where the goal is to keep student indebtedness to $2,500 below the national average. The System Enrollment Council spends significant time discussing financial aid strategies and affordability. This includes developing initiatives around need-based, middle-income aid, and merit aid. Of course, the backbone for our need-based aid program includes the federal Pell Program, Minnesota State Grant Program, and the university's Promise Program, those 3. Together, these programs provide up to $20,000 in gift aid to the neediest students, that is low Pell, low income. More recently, the university created the Promise Plus program that provides free tuition to Minnesota residents and students whose families make less than $50,000 per year. We also established the Native American Promise program that you've heard about that provides free tuition for students who are members of one of Minnesota's 11 federally recognized nations, and those families are making less than $125,000. Just last month, the state of Minnesota launched 2 new significant financial aid programs. The first is the North Star Promise Scholarship that provides free tuition and fees to Minnesota students whose families make less than $80,000. Interesting, at $79,999, you're not part of the program, and are attending a public institution. The second is the Native American Scholarship that will provide free tuition and fees for any Native American student attending a public institution. Both of these new programs will require revising our U of M financial aid strategies. And in May, the board learned about several new tuition financial aid support pilots at the greater Minnesota campuses. One of the challenges in higher education and for the U of M is controlling debt for all students, but in particular our middle-income families. As seen on this graph, student debt is actually highest for those families making between $120,000 and $140,000 per year. Those families who are considered low income, that is Pell, receive substantial gift aid, while those in the middle income category do not qualify for Pell, don't qualify for state grant, and they receive a relatively small amount of U of M Promise. And of course, those families in the higher income brackets have much more capacity to fund their students' education. I'll now return the presentation back to Interim Executive Vice Chancellor.
Thank you, Vice Provost McMaster. This slide provides the background to an investment that began in academic year 2021 with a system-wide recruitment campaign focusing on unique offerings of all 5 campuses within our system. These exclusively digital campaigns help to bring awareness to the University of Minnesota system as a whole, while also complementing individual campuses' recruitment. There were very positive results, as shown in terms of applications, web traffic, and awareness. The 2022 campaign objectives. This collaborative marketing campaign was renewed in academic year 22-23 with an investment in system-wide recruitment, as well as a focus on Crookston, Morris, and Duluth. The specific 2022 campaign objectives were to promote awareness of University of Minnesota as a system with a campus as a campus for everyone, increase awareness of the Crookston, Duluth, and Morris campuses, and drive traffic to the campus websites. While sharing these results and indications that the system-wide campaign was a strong traffic driver to the campus and system websites, we do note that system and individual campus recruitment marketing efforts are, of course, complementary, and that the data is inextricably combined. The system campaign provides value by raising awareness of all of our campuses and their unique attributes, and is a complement to local efforts. The analytics cannot be completely tied to the system recruitment campaign, since each campus is also doing their own recruitment marketing, but they complement each other and has a huge impact. The Stealth application data from 2020 is the most direct application data we have to associate with the system recruitment campaign, as those Stealth applicants were not previously known to the university, thus Stealth. The Twin Cities and Duluth especially saw a dramatic increase in Stealth applications. We do recognize that multiple factors can contribute to those final numbers, including individual campus efforts, but we note that those Stealth numbers between Duluth and Twin Cities were very consistent, suggesting something related to the system efforts. For the 2022 campaign, which focused on Crookston, Morris, and Duluth and was just completed, traffic to campus application and admission pages were up 34% from 2020. Various measures such as paid search and social media ads can help determine the success of the campaign. Paid search was the most effective driver of one-site traffic, delivered the most qualified leads, and appeared to be one of the most beneficial ways to invest marketing dollars. And just to add some clarity, paid search is a digital marketing strategy where we pay search engines to place our ads higher on relevant search engine results pages with the goal of driving traffic to our site. So that's what it means by paid search. Given the strong performance of paid search, we will again propose a comprehensive, system-wide, year-round paid search campaign. We would anticipate running such a campaign from September 2023 to May 2024. We believe the best opportunity to build awareness of each campus and the system through a paid search campaign, along with additional investment for each individual campus's recruitment efforts. And now I'd like to turn the presentation back over to Vice Provost McMaster.
And with that, we will conclude our presentation, and we're happy to entertain comments and questions from the board.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Provost McMaster and Vice Chancellor Haitapelto. Well, we get a lineup here, which I know we will have. I just want to thank you and your teams and the broader community. I've only had a short tenure here as a board member of 4 years, colleagues, and the advancement and the collaboration seen through this initiative is tremendous. And while we aren't always satisfied. We want more. There really has been great movement, especially, invoking my age here, watching this since the mid to late 80s. There's really been a lot of progress in a few short years, so thank you for all that. Question I have, I just want to circle back. Vice Provost, the goal for Minnesota post-secondary certificate or degree completion is 70%. Did you say that we now have only 40% of our high school graduates going on, or what was that? What was that number?
Yeah. Chair Davenport and members of the board, that number was 40%, for nearly 40, not quite 40, of Minnesota high school graduates for the last year did not go on to college. The 70% number is for the entire population, that the goal with all racial and ethnic groups is to get that number to 70% having some kind of credential.
So we have a long way to go, I would guess, looking at not just the incoming freshmen, but those we're missing with incomplete degrees, et cetera, to get to that 70%.
Yeah, we're sliding backwards, in fact, if you look at the percent not going to college going up and wanting to reach that 70% goal, absolutely.
That's important to note. Thank you. So we will start with Student Representative Riley Tuck. Please, Riley.
Thank you, Chair Davenport. Thanks, presenters. Just really quickly, I was wondering what, if any, student involvement in this collaboration looks like. Do you have student leaders you're working with? I would just imagine that's a really important group of people to be working with because they were the ones that were recruited in the first place. So I'd just like to hear a little bit about that.
Vice Provost.
Yeah, Chair Davenport, members of the committee, and Representative Tuff. Yeah, not directly. We don't have students who sit on the council because the council basically represents individuals with pretty deep expertise in enrollment and student success. But I meet, for instance, with student government on a regular basis, and I bring them up to speed on many of the initiatives that are related to system enrollment trends, financial aid trends, new initiatives, new ways of advising, and career counseling. So that's my connection point where much of this is articulated to the students, and I ask for their advice as well.
Chair Davenport and Regent Tuff and members of the board, I can add a little bit as well from the Greater Minnesota campuses. So we too work closely with the Student Government Association, and most colleges, students serve on all of the various committees within the college, which would include curriculum committees, student success committees, outreach committees. And we also, when we are looking at new initiatives, bring the students in to participate. So this summer at the University of Minnesota Duluth, we're having 3 different outreach and listening sessions, one each month, to talk about student success. And we have brought in a number of individuals to speak about, for instance, student wellness and mental health, disability services, but also about how we can improve advising, how we can improve other success factors for our students. So there is lots of multiple outreach that goes on, and then that information comes back to inform the committee's work. But you raise an interesting idea. We'll have to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Thank you. Regent Gully.
Thank you so much for that presentation, and thank you, Chair. I just want to reiterate what Student Representative Tuft just said and say that I find it I appreciate hearing that you do have student representation. I find it concerning that we have a group of experts making these kinds of decisions without student input, because the students are also experts in a very particular way that is really important. I was wondering though, so you said that only 40% of high school, so I have a couple of questions, I hope that's okay. Only 40% of high schoolers last year enrolled in college right away.
No,
Wait, sorry.
Other way around.
Say that one more time.
Sure. Nearly 40% of Minnesota high school graduates did not go on to any post-secondary.
Great, thank you. And So I'm wondering if there are other factors involved with that. Like, for example, it's really common right now to take a gap year. So do those numbers improve after the first year or the second year or the fifth year? Is this something that like fell off a cliff last year, or can you look at those numbers in previous years and say, yes, like 60% of people went on in the first year, but then another 20% went on in the second year or something like that? And then so here's the second part of my question, I guess. Do you have a sense of why that's happening? I know that we just had this discussion about raising tuition and we've been talking about student debt, and I tend to think that those things are heavily tied to students not making the decision to go to college right away and not to enroll in university. And I'm wondering, can you talk about that connection? And do we ever, like, for example, survey high school students and recent grads to find out why they didn't come to the University of Minnesota or why they're choosing something else? So that's 3 questions. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And thank you, Chair.
Vice Provost, Vice Chancellor.
Sure, I'll take a run at it, and then Vice Chancellor Haitapelto can as well. Chair Davenport and Regent Gully, a couple comments here. In terms of the 40%, it would be hard to disaggregate the data to figure out in multiple years what is the exact nature of that 40%. Is it a gap year? Is it someone who has left the state, moved out of state? But the concerning trend here is that's been going up. And so it's gone from the mid-30s up into the high 30s. And so that trend is really what we're concerned about, when in fact, if you go back even further, the number used to be much lower. A much higher percentage of Minnesota high school graduates would in fact continue on. In terms of why, there are a lot of reasons. Certainly the pandemic has had an immediate impact on college-going rates nationally. And so we have to kind of, in some ways, remove that from the equation, because that hopefully will change over time. Right. There's also a significant difference between males and females attending higher education. We see that clearly with the data. And we know that there are many good employment opportunities, in particular for males, as they leave high school. And so the college-going rate is lower because of the good jobs, high-paying jobs, good benefits. The Minnesota Office of Higher Education has kind of identified that as one of the trends that's going on. So we're dealing with that as well. Interestingly, as we see students who leave or leave the state who don't attend university here, and those were in the data as well, that was the 28% who leave the state, many of them are leaving for higher price institutions. They're not, in fact, leaving for lower price institutions, which lead us to believe that in terms of that particular category, it's not our tuition and cost of attendance that's impacting it. It's a desire to leave the state and to get away from home. In terms of surveys, we do. We contract with EAB, a company that does our direct marketing, and they provide us with some information as to why students don't attend the University of Minnesota. One of them would be academic programs. We don't have the exact academic program that student wants. Another is affordability, that shows up. Another is some kind of relationship that their parent went to another institution or their brother or sister went, and they're following that student to another place. So there are myriad reasons why students don't attend the U of M. We have a pretty decent idea why.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you say more about these jobs for men?
Yeah, in the trades in particular, there's a lot of opportunity for males. And so what the Office of Higher Education has hypothesized is that provides a great opportunity coming out of high school if the student is not as inclined to proceed to higher education.
Excuse me, I'm just taking a little bit of issue with I understand that those tend to attract perhaps one particular but they're not, uniquely suited to.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But they tend to be there tend to be more opportunities for males. At least that's what our higher education office feels.
Mm-hmm.
I'll add a few additional comments. Thank you, Chair Davenport, and thank you also, Regent Gully and members of the board. Some of the specific data at the University of Minnesota Duluth supports this. We too have seen a pretty significant drop in males attending the university, far bigger than the drop in women. And what Vice Provost McMaster was also talking about, the full employment, the strong economy that we've seen in the past few years, and more people choosing to defer going to college in order to take those other jobs is borne out by the drops in the community college numbers as well, which then feeds the transfer pipeline and on up to us. And although it may not necessarily be true, there is, I would say, a perception in the eyes of some of the population that the value for a college education may not be there, but yet data does show that your lifetime income continues to increase with every additional degree, and that still holds true even at the current price point of a college education. So we may have some work to do to counter that what I would argue is a misperception in the eyes of some of the public. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
As programs such as Women in the Trades and Men in Healthcare began to take place, as we get more of the secondary level career and technical fields coming back after years of absence, there's so many things churning around in this landscape, not just here in Minnesota, but nationally, that it's harder to predict today where our enrollment may be tomorrow because of this increasing elements of churn.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Regent Turner.
Oh, already? Okay. I was just going to add to that discussion about having been now a labor leader for almost 8 years. And here's something that the trades are actively doing, and we may want to kind of emulate them, is they are actively going to those high schools and recruiting, and with promises of, which is true, training, and a way to earn money while they're training. And I would say, at least for sure in the last 5 years, they've really upped their game as far as getting students interested back in the trades. So, and they're all doing it: carpenters, the pipe fitters, the electricians. And this is, you know, for a 19-year-old to be able to come out and go up to the oil rigs in Alaska and make, you know, 150 grand a year. I mean, that's, you know, and then within another year be a foreman up there. I mean, that's really, because these kids want to come out and make money right away.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're up against. And I hate to say it that way, because on the one hand, I'm cheering the whole thing as a labor leader, but I just need to let you all know what you're up against as far as competition for these young men.
And women.
Yeah, Chair Davenport and Regent Turner, thanks a lot for that. I think that's spot on, and we do obviously recruit heavily in the high schools. We go out with our message, but our message is about a value proposition of studying more, and over your lifetime, you're going to earn
Right.
X additional dollars, versus your example of the student who's going to come out and make $70,000 the next year with good benefits, and that's a real tussle. Yeah.
Yep.
Regent Wheeler.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Davenport. Very nice to be with you here today. Vice President McMaster and team, I'm wondering about the intersect between the students' desires and needs for support and the wonderful talented workforce needed that the university is so helps create for the state of Minnesota. So what are the thoughts about matching? So for example, I'll say, I talked to a student the other day who said, I want 3 things. I want to be safe, I want to graduate in 4 years, and I want a meaningful job. You know, and then you have on the other side, jobs looking for people. And, you know, some wonderful organizations looking for that talent that the university is so good. Are there, what opportunities are there for kind of matchmaking between employers and their support and the students' needs and desires? So has that been explored, and what is the thought process there?
Sure.
Vice Provost, Vice Chancellor.
Go first.
Certainly, I'll be glad to start first, and thank you, Chair Davenport and Regent Wheeler and members of the board. We do a lot of work with external advisory boards to share with them what our programs are, what our curriculum is, and to ask them what their workforce needs are and what are the areas where they're having difficulty filling jobs, good starting jobs, professional jobs. And so that interaction is there. Students often present to those boards, talk with those external advisory boards, and that informs the kind of curriculum and programs, new programs that we want to offer. And then in terms of students, they have a chance to work hand in hand during the advising, the orientation, the mentoring process on campus to try to match them up with jobs that would be appropriate and of interest to them. And that's ongoing. Freshmen might come in at age 18 and just have a very general sense of what they might want to do. And that exploration takes place over multiple years. But you're talking about how do we link that with the workforce. And so let me just expand on one other thing and then turn it over to Vice Provost McMaster. Many of our programs and courses have students working in companies, helping solve real problems in collaboration with the companies. So the students have a chance to showcase their work, be involved with a corporate problem, and many of those get them segueing then into internships. Many of those are paid internships before they graduate. And we do have programs where we partner with companies where students do have an opportunity to have those specialized, they're like pre-jobs, right, that are paid before they graduate. So I think we're trying to do that matchmaking. We could probably capitalize on additional opportunities as well. I do think so. Vice Provost
Sure.
McMaster.
Yeah,
do you
Chair
want-
Davenport and Regent Wheeler, a couple thoughts here. One is we do have a very strong central and collegiate career counseling set of offices here that work with the students even early on as they start to identify a pathway they want to continue on. So there's really two parts of student success. One is the academic advising that gets into the coursework and curriculum and majors, and the other is the career counseling that encourages students to think beyond their degree and what they want to do in life. Students tend to vote with their feet in terms of what they want to study, and we can only nudge them so much, which I think is a good thing. And we value all degrees and all areas of inquiry. That's a faculty member speaking here. But we have seen, in terms of workforce needs, a bit of a realignment in enrollments over the last decade. So for instance, in our College of Science and Engineering, we've increased the freshman class from 800 to 1,600 over the last 10 years. We've increased the size of the Carlson School from 500 to 700. We've increased CBS, College of Biological Sciences, from the 400s to close to 600. We just created a new degree this year it's called a Bachelor of Arts in Public Health. So our School of Public Health, which had been only at the graduate level, has now established an undergraduate degree. So organically, we're kind of realigning things a bit so that we're attentive to the direction students want to go. But again, we value English majors and philosophy majors and language and so on.
Yeah. For sure.
Follow-up?
Yeah, I did one follow-up. Thank you, Chair Davenport. So that's great that those programs are expanding, and I'm a big believer in liberal arts and what we need in terms of our talent base as well. I'm wondering, are there any tuition support programs that you're starting to see evolve with employers supporting directly, the student tuition and support in that regard? And are there programs potentially available there?
Yeah.
Vice Provost.
The simple answer is not really. And not at the undergraduate level. We don't see that kind of corporate industry support for tuition. Onesies and twosies, but not systematically.
Yeah, I think that's, I'll just follow up and just say, I think, and Regent Turner just said, that's too bad, because I think we're in search and need of the talent, and it almost feels like an opportunity for an ROTC-like program where, you could support somebody and potentially have them try, these employers and these jobs out for size. So thank you. Yeah.
Although, just let me mention this. So one place where we do get corporate support in many of these areas is with internships and co-ops.
Right.
And that makes a big difference in their ability to get employment after they graduate.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll finish up with a question from Regent Talia Rabi.
Thank you, Chair Davenport and Vice Provost McMaster. I just had a quick question about that 40% that you were talking about. I think just also thinking about the larger and growing share of students of color in high schools, and I wonder. It sounds like that was it's trending upwards, but I'm also trying to understand if we are. And this is not up to the university, but also what we do in K-12 in terms of, as our student population in K-12 gets more and more diverse, does that correlate with, those who maybe have less opportunities or perhaps are not entering college at the same level? Does that kind of correlate? And what is it that we might do in partnership with K-12?
K-12 relationships, please.
I think we're continuing to, I'm sorry. Thank you, Chair Davenport and Regent Tayarabi and members of the board. I think we are continuing to look for opportunities to partner. So we do have programs for the summer, various camps, often at lower minimal cost, that bring students on campus to experience what it might be like to work in the sciences, to major in the sciences, et cetera. We do have outreach into the K through 12 around the Duluth area, and I'm sure that happens in this region as well. And we have been doing outreach, particularly on the Iron Range, in terms of our STEM and engineering programs. But you do raise a point, which is that some of the rate of college going may be shifting among the students that are graduating from what we've seen historically. So that outreach is going to continue to be vitally important. It does happen. We are alert for opportunities, and we have seen increasing numbers of students doing the PSEO and college in the schools, and students coming in with a year or even a year and a half already to their credit because of courses that they took in high school. So that outreach and that interest in college is happening.
Yeah,
Vice Provost.
Very quickly. Regent Tayarabi, a couple of comments here. One is we're extremely mindful of the geodemographics of the state of Minnesota and how rapidly they're changing, and how we're going to have to align our own enrollment strategies with those changes. We have, as with Duluth, a lot of outreach programs to targeted high schools in the Twin Cities area and beyond, where we know there are significant numbers of students of color, BIPOC students, and Native American students. And so our outreach and our programs seem to be working well, and that this year, again, if the numbers hold, we're going to have the highest percent of diversity in our history at about 36%. So we're in a good spot, but again, one of the major concerns here is the impact of the Supreme Court decision.
Thank you. We do have one more question from Student Representative Davis. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Davenport and presenters. I didn't necessarily have a question, but I wanted to add on to Regent Tayarabi's point that I think something the university could do, and I'm in education, I'm an elementary education major. So I think we have the opportunity when we're training teachers to have them talk to the students that they work with about college and opportunities and what that looks like, especially those students that may be in more middle school areas where they might not necessarily get hit with college education yet because people think they may not be quite ready. But you have this large base of teacher training programs where you can really talk to students about what college means and what that looks like. And as our teacher programs get more diverse, we have support from the state legislature on that. So students have the opportunity to see people like them go to college and have a fulfilling career. And I think those programs are a really great opportunity to take advantage of that and promote the U in the way I think Regent Tayarabi was talking about a little bit, and build those partnerships in public education.
Very good. Great closing comment. Appreciate that. And thank you for the presentation. And as even in the short time new regents have been here, you hear these conversations coming up in multiple different ways. So we'll continue to look at that as we move forward. Thank you. And we will switch into Our second agenda item, and while we get that set up, that is on distributed learning strategy updates. Give it back to you, Vice Provost, and we have with us Eric, Provost and Vice Provost for Distributed Learning, Eric Watkins, with us. Thank you.
Thank
Provost
you,
Croson.
Chair Davenport, members of the committee. I'm happy to provide what has become an annual update on the university's distributed learning strategy. Some of you will recall Dr. Amy Pittenger was a co-presenter last year in her one-year role as faculty liaison for online education collaborations. Since that time, I have created an Office of Distributed Learning and hired Dr. Eric Watkins, professor in the Department of Horticultural Sciences, as Vice Provost to lead in this area. I'm delighted he's joined my team and to have him join all of us today. You can go to the next slide. Before I turn the presentation over to Vice Provost Watkins, I'll anchor us in Impact 2025, which calls on us to establish innovative, coordinated, and scaled system-wide distributed learning models in order to increase access and meet workforce needs. As I've discussed in this forum previously, we are not trying to compete in the already crowded space of offering a comprehensive selection of fully online undergraduate degrees. There are many other providers in that space. Our strategy instead is targeted. We seek to identify educational offerings, degrees or certificates, or even non-credit opportunities that have unmet demand and relatively few suppliers. We seek educational offerings that can make a difference in our state, nationally, and especially when we can leverage the expertise of multiple campuses to serve new markets. Our goal is not to cannibalize our existing programs. Our goal is to reach students or learners who would not otherwise come to the U. Chair Davenport, Vice Provost Watkins will now provide a bit of background, especially for our new regents, and then update you on where we are and where we're headed in this space.
Thank you. Vice Provost, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Provost Croson, Chair Davenport, and members of the committee. So there are many good reasons for our institution to increase the number of fully online programs, whether they be degrees, minors, or certificates. These programs provide flexibility for students, allow a great number of learners to access the tremendous breadth of the University of Minnesota. And these programs can also help respond to a shift in learner demographics where we are seeing more non-traditional students, including those who are only able to attend part-time. And importantly, these benefits accrue also to our residential students and enhance their experience as well, providing more flexibility, which can reduce their time to graduation and help them get through their programs more efficiently. So where are we currently? You can see here that we already have over 100 fully online degrees or minors, as well as several non-credit offerings. Most of our fully online undergraduate programs are at Crookston, and many of our other offerings are focused on professional graduate credentials and non-degree seeking students. When compared to our peers in the Big Ten, we are relatively active in this space. It is worth noting that some of the numbers on the slide count programs in the entire system and others only at the flagship. And then some institutions in the Big Ten, such as Purdue and Maryland, have separate online entities that are not included in these data. In recent years, there's been a trend of online courses representing an increasing share of total credits in the University of Minnesota system. During 2020, 2021, there was a tremendous change due to the pandemic, and for that reason, we have left data from that year out of this particular chart. The raw numbers for that year are in the docket, and we've indicated that with a dotted line. Here's the same data broken down by campus. Crookston, unsurprisingly, has the highest percentage of total credits that are either partially or completely online. But even at Morris, there's an increasing trend to give students greater flexibility by providing online classes. One of the important ways that the university delivers scaled non-credit programs is through Coursera, an online learning platform with over 125 million users. Coursera is an excellent way to expand the reach of the university and make an international audience or individuals who are not degree seeking aware of our educational programs. Other institutions are using Coursera to provide non-credit to credit pathways, and this is something we will explore in the coming years. Here are a few examples of successful Coursera University of Minnesota offerings. And offerings can range from a single course to specializations, which are sets of courses focused on a single topic, and then a learner, once they get completion of the specialization, will receive a certificate. So my office was only recently formed, and we are currently focused on 3 areas. System-wide programs, as Provost Croson described in the strategic plan at the start of this presentation, degree completion, and enabling online program development. I'm going to spend a few minutes on each of these. At your meeting last month, Chancellors Holtzclaws and Carroll provided you an update about the Next Gen Med and Next Gen Ag programs, so I will not cover those particular ones today. Instead, I'd like to give you a few examples of the other kinds of programs we currently offer and that we are developing. In June 2022, before he was appointed regent, Tad Johnson provided an overview about the MTrees program, a unique program that will be valuable to students interested in federal, state, and tribal careers in natural resources. There's no one else offering a distance degree in this space, and there's significant demand both from tribal employees and others in the environmental stewardship area. This program was also identified by an external consultant as one of the best opportunities in the University of Minnesota system for online program growth. Therefore, over the past year, we have coordinated a marketing strategy with the goal of enrolling full student cohorts each fall. Previously, new cohorts were enrolled every other year. This marketing work, which is led by the excellent marketing team in the College of Continuing and Professional Studies, has been very successful. In fall 2022, 11 students enrolled, and the fall 2023 incoming class is likely to fill, with 9 applicants already and 14 more in progress. While it is difficult to track how each applicant heard about the program, we do know that about 2/3 of those who've applied or who are in process of applying discovered MTrees due to these marketing efforts. We've also worked with faculty and staff in American Indian Studies at Duluth to identify courses on other campuses, particularly in the Twin Cities, CFANS, and the Humphrey School, that would be good additions to the MTrees curriculum. Online minors are a great way to give students throughout the system an opportunity to take advantage of the educational programs from other campuses. These online minors can help academic units increase enrollments in their courses. For departments considering creating fully online degree programs, minors can be a good first step. Finally, these minors can serve as credentials that enhance existing degree programs. The table on this slide shows the number of students from each campus taking courses from other campuses within the system. As more online minors are available, we expect increased course enrollments that span campuses, and there's a list of the online minors that are currently available in your docket. Another area of focus for our office is degree completion. As higher education has grappled with enrollment challenges, greater attention has been given to the role that institutions can play in helping students who have left higher ed before graduation to complete their degree. In Minnesota alone, there are estimated to be over 600,000 residents with some credits but no college credential. This number has only risen in recent years. Because most of these learners are working adults, online programs can provide the flexibility needed to help them move through a degree. Of course, not every one of these 600,000 people wants to complete their degree, but even if a small percentage of this large population has this goal, we should be working towards ways to serve these Minnesotans. This initiative is also consistent with the goals of the P20 Council that Vice Provost McMaster described in the previous presentation. Because our system has such distinct campuses, each with unique priorities, we can leverage our entire system to help launch a degree completion program. Tuition differences between campuses will be critical for some learners. The availability of flexible online majors at Crookston and the Twin Cities will help those who can't travel to campus. Both Duluth and Crookston provide an opportunity for students to be granted some credit for prior learning, which experts say is an important component of a successful degree completion initiative. Geography is also important, not only because our campuses cover regions throughout the state, but also because we know even online program enrollees tend to prefer institutions close to home. We are currently working on the structure of this program and hope to launch a pilot degree completion effort prior to my next update in June 2024. Finally, we aim to develop the infrastructure to help units throughout the system build new online and hybrid programs. When building a new online program, there are a number of components that need to be developed. One of the first things is an assessment of the market to determine if the program will generate enough interest from students, and then also identify who the natural competitors are. Then comes marketing and recruiting, followed by the development of a system for handling inquiries. Concurrently, there's a need to plan and approve curricula, design new courses, and help faculty and staff think about best practices for teaching online. There are other considerations as well: student advising, accessibility, student well-being, etc. For an individual unit, this is a big lift, not only in terms of time and personnel, but also cost. Marketing alone can require in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So far at the U, units in this situation either do it on their own, which is difficult at scale, or hire an external vendor to assist. These external vendors, known as online program managers or OPMs, provide a number of services, and in return, there is typically an agreement that the OPM will receive a percentage of tuition over the first several years of the program. Not long ago, this share was well north of 50%, sometimes as high as 80%. Recently, market pressure has brought this number down to a range of 30 to 40% in many instances. This model is now under pressure from the United States Department of Education, which is considering requiring a wholesale adjustment of many existing vendor contracts. We are in the early stages of building an internal model whereby the Office of Distributed Learning coordinates personnel and financial resources within the system to accomplish these new online and hybrid program builds. The internal approach will most certainly save money and, more importantly, maintain our high expectations for educational programming quality, including long-term faculty development in online learning and ongoing assessments of program effectiveness. We've already had many units express interest in this model and expect this to be a popular option. External vendors may still be needed for specific areas or functions, especially at times when interest is high, but our office will vet these vendors and manage these external contracts. We hope that this internal capability will empower academic units to think more broadly about potential online programs and then to launch those programs more effectively. Thank you, Chair Davenport, members of the committee. This concludes our remarks. We welcome your thoughts and questions. In particularly, we'd like to get your perspective on opportunities for degree completion and professional credentials that support our state's employers.
Very good, thank you, Vice Provost Watkins. And again, this is another area where we've seen great advancement, I'd say, within the last 4 years especially. I like the approach that we're not using the external vendors, but using the expertise of our faculty themselves. Could you just speak a moment while we get questions? Online offerings are not particularly inexpensive to offer. So the notion that if we could only just do more online course delivery, our revenue would go up, that's something that floats out there. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Chair Davenport. There's certainly a lot of costs associated with delivering online classes, right? You still have the faculty cost, you still have TA costs, but a big one is the academic technology infrastructure, right? You have to spend a lot of money up front to get those systems in place. And we have really great academic technology infrastructure here at the university, and that costs money. And it costs money for the people to maintain that infrastructure. So it's certainly not a really low-cost option. There's a lot that goes into delivering a good program. There's the cost of instructional designers. There's faculty development time and those folks who develop those programs for faculty to learn how to teach online effectively.
So we're focused on quality rather than quantity.
Right, Chair DeBoer, that is a lot of our focus. It's really thinking about quality. How do we deliver this sort of internal OPM at a high quality?
Very good. Regent Johnson.
Yes, so thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I especially want to thank Provost Croson, who actually decided to market this little niche program we had at UMD, and now it's what was interesting about when we developed it was not our idea to put it online. It was the idea of the tribal participants. So we went out and consulted with them for a couple of years as we developed this degree, which we were very fortunate to have the School of Science underwrite our consultation sessions. And then when Provost Croson discovered our little program, she started this marketing program, which has made a difference. And now we have two master's programs up at UMD, and this one's kind of passing up the other one, so it's kind of interesting. We started off doing tribal administration and governance, but anyway, we totally fed into the needs and requests of the tribal participants, and so as far as how to develop one of these things, we got the viewpoints of the folks that were going to participate. So I just wanted to thank the provost and you for your work in now and in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair Davenport and Regent Johnson. A quick note, I think M-Trees is a great example of how marketing can work, even for a smaller program. But it's also an example how these online programs, they all need to fit their circumstance, right, or their context. And this is a great example where it's completely online, but there's still synchronous discussions in class, and they're happening at times that work for those learners that are in the program, right? So I can't remember exactly, but they're like on the weekends and things like that, right? So that it works with those learners. And I think talking to that population of potential learners is really important to get that going.
Thank you. Regent Hips.
Thanks, Chair Davenport, and thanks, Provost Watkins, for the great presentation. So when I looked at their last presentation, I was thinking, okay, we have 60,000 roughly kids graduating, and 40% aren't going to college. So I looked at it as an opportunity of 24,000 kids or something like that to 30,000 kids. And then I said, I was thinking, okay, so this distributed learning is great because it doesn't have to be either I'm going to go get a job or I'm going to go to college. You can do both with this. And so, like, let's say a kid is going into construction and he's learning the construction trade, right? Mm-hmm. And now he wants to start his own business. Now he can take business classes and he can learn how to employ people. He can do all this other stuff. And so it might take him 6 years or her 6 years to get their thing, but that's our market, and that's what we need to go after. In small town Minnesota, let me tell you, we need accountants, we need lawyers, we need city managers, we need nurses, we need doctors, we need engineers, we need, you name it, we need it. Social workers, county workers, we need everything, okay? And so they're all college degrees, but at the same time, we need business owners to build houses because we have a shortage of houses, and these people have to graduate into that, owning their own business, and this is going to be great for them. So I think that's what we market to. And I think for businesses like that I own, I would love to have somebody that's taking business classes to buy my businesses because, believe it or not, I'm not going to live forever, and I need to sell those. Yeah, no, seriously, 98% chance I'm going to do it. So anyways, what I'm saying is I think this is a really good thing, and I think it's going to really help greater Minnesota and help all of our towns succeed. But we have to get some money into marketing to get this to happen. I really believe that. So I don't really have a question in there, but keep on keeping on. So
thank you. You did address their question number 2, I believe, as did Regent Wheeler in the last presentation.
I'll comment quickly, Chair Davenport and Regent Hips. What you're talking about is really becoming an important trend. Sort of the student is looking at 120 credits to get a degree, and that might be a little daunting. This trend of sort of stackable credentials, kind of offering these smaller pieces of education that lead to something else, a pathway to a degree, that's definitely the trend. And a lot of what we think about and talk about in our office is how can we leverage what exists in the system to do that and provide that for people in Minnesota.
Just to follow up, I had 2 out of my 3 kids, they both graduated from here, and one went to Johns Hopkins, got her public health degree from distance learning, which she went out to Baltimore twice, I think. And my son, who's not good in geography, lives in San Francisco, and he's getting his master's at Penn State and works in New Hampshire. So, you know what I mean? And so he's going to take 2 or 3 years to do it, but they're doing one class at a time. And it's huge revenue coming into Penn State. So, for what it's worth. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Regent Turner.
Thank you. Chair Davenport, I just have one question. Is our broadband in Minnesota able to handle all of the online classes? Because that infrastructure, I know when I was on the Biden COVID task force and they're talking about telehealth, and my big question was, can you even get internet access? I mean, does that stand in the way, and should we be pushing at the legislature for ever increasing dollars going into that kind of infrastructure?
Chair Davenport, Regent Turner, that is a great question and a great point. And that's something we think about. And it comes up time and time again. Access for some people just isn't the same as it is for a lot of us, right? And when we're talking about broadband access here, especially in outstate Minnesota, but other places as well in the Twin Cities. We have had conversations with colleagues that are working in Minnesota State, the Minnesota State system, same problem, right? Online classes to communities that might not have the same broadband infrastructure that we have here, right? And we're definitely thinking about that. And I don't know what the solution is, but I think starting to work more closely with Minnesota State on this and identify opportunities to work together to study this and figure out how to get resources and things like that. So great point.
Provost Croson?
Yeah, Chair Davenport, Regent Turner, I mean, one of the things we've been talking about is utilizing our extension offices and our ROCs, our research and outreach centers, which are scattered around the state, as a place where people might come in the evenings, for example, in order to do their online classes. So we're not going to be able to be within 10 miles of everybody, but I think for areas where internet access can be a challenge, especially in rural areas, we do have some resources in collaboration with Minnesota State that we can think about. Public libraries, there are central places where you can come in order to do those classes, and we're kind of thinking about how to leverage those as well.
Representative Tuck.
Thank you, Chair Davenport, Vice Provost Watkins. So your discussion question number 1 about degree completion, just curious, what is the goal to recruit students who previously attended a UMN school, or is it any school? And then I have a follow-up to that.
Chair Davenport, Representative Tuft. So for students who used to be at the University of Minnesota is a great population because those credits are going to more easily transfer, right? But we see this as beyond that. There's a lot of people out there who might have got their credits from out of state or something like that, where we can work with them to see how we're going to get those credits to transfer in. I discussed there might be different ways to access the system based on credit for prior learning, tuition rates, things like that. So we're really thinking beyond just former University of Minnesota students, but that would be a really big population that we would want to really focus on initially, probably.
Follow-up?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Davenport. And then really quickly, I just think you spoke about, working with transferring credits, but I think that would be, we see that there's a lot of push to make credits very transferable from each of the system campuses, but I still know students struggle with that to a great extent. So I think that this in particular, if it's a goal of the university to recruit, especially returning students from other universities, it would be a really great opportunity to work on the transferability, is that a word, of credits.
Chair Davenport, we're aware of this challenge, and it comes up, and we've got very different campuses, and that's created some things that make it difficult to do some of these processes. But in the degree completion effort, we can also take advantage of those differences to get students in the system, while also thinking carefully about how to make it easier for students to do things like move credits between campuses.
Very good. All right, we look forward to continued progress along with Next Gen. And I'm reading our group. It looks like we could use a short break. So let's be back 10 minutes. All right, welcome back. We're ready to reconvene, and we will continue with our third item, which is action on the proposed amendments to the Board of Regents Policy Disability Services. I'd like to welcome our presenters, the Disability Resource Center Director, Angie Hall, and Associate Vice President Tina Marisam. Should there be any questions? I'm looking for a motion to approve the proposed changes.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions?
I'm sure.
Regent Kenyon.
Thank you. When we do these review and action, on the action one, it seems like we don't care because we just move into it, but it's because we had a really good discussion last time. So just want to recognize that, and it was helpful for me. I think we all learned some things, and appreciate the work you're all doing and the progressiveness of this policy. So looking forward to supporting it, Madam Chair.
Thank you for sharing that reflection, Regent Kenyon. Regent Gully.
Oh, thank you, Chair. We did have a really great discussion, but since this is a public meeting, would you mind doing a high-level overview of what we talked about last time and why you're here today? Thank you so much.
Please, Director, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Davenport and Regent Gully. Just a little summary of the changes that we have proposed to the policy. We're proposing really only minor and non-substantive changes. I think they fall into two categories. The first is some changes just to update the policy to board formatting norms, adding a scope section to the policy, and also adding mention of the related board policy on equity, diversity, equal opportunity, and affirmative action. The second category of proposed changes is really to update some of the language in the policy. I think at the last meeting we talked about how there's been quite a bunch of shifts around language around disability in recent years. So the second category of changes is really just updating the language. I think the most significant change there is a proposal to change the name of the policy from Disability Services to Disability Resources, which reflects a national trend in naming and is really intended to clarify that the policy is intended to reach not just disabled individuals and provide services to them, but really to provide resources to our entire community on how to make our community more accessible.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anything else? Then all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. Thank you. The motion is passed. Thank you for your work on this important policy.
Thank you.
And we will move right into the consent agenda. Provost Croson.
Thank you, Regent Davenport, members of the committee. I present the consent report for your consideration with my and the President's recommendation for approval. This month, we have just 2 program changes, along with a few late additions and a typographical correction to the promotion and tenure approvals you gave last month, several tenure recommendations for new hires, and 1 faculty emeritus recommendation. Chair Davenport, I'm happy to take any questions that you or any other regents might have.
Very good, thank you. Regent Johnson, did you have a question at this point?
I have a comment when we get to the granting tenure to new hires section.
Yeah.
This is it? Okay. Well, I wanted to commend President Gable, Provost Croson, Dean Botchway, and my friend Karen Diver for hiring Professor Cheryl Lightfoot. It's the first time the Humphrey School, to my knowledge, has hired a Native American professor to teach Indigenous policy. And so in the long history of the Humphrey School, I believe this is the first time it's been done. There are 580 tribal governments in the United States. Everybody who graduates from the Humphrey School eventually is going to encounter Indian tribes, deal with tribal sovereignty, whether they're working for the federal government or the state government. And so, everybody involved in that hire, I'm very grateful to. So thank you for doing that. That was my comment. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments, or would anyone like to separate out an item from the report to be voted on separately before I invite a motion? See not. Is there a motion to recommend approval of the consent report?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. The motion is approved. Thank you. And now, I suppose we didn't need that break because we're on our last item, 5 information items, Provost Croson. And just, let me just say, I hope everyone had a chance to look. As usual, there's good information provided by the links in the content.
Thank you, Chair Davenport, members of the committee. This information report includes select student, faculty, and staff accomplishments that occurred in the last few weeks since our last committee meeting. I'm really delighted to highlight that the University of Minnesota will receive a $20 million grant over 5 years from the National Science Foundation and the U.S. Department of Agriculture's National Institute of Food and Agriculture to lead a new National Artificial Intelligence Research Institute in that area. I'll also note that this report includes honors that were not awarded in time to make it into last month's information report, but whose recipients were nonetheless recognized during the full board meeting in May.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? If you, Regent Turner, please.
Chair Davenport, so is this an example, this 20 million, whatever, is this an example of that chunk of change when we're talking the different revenue sources? That first one that you really can't count on, but what was it called? You know what I'm talking about. I'd have to go back to the little screen thing, but.
Provost? Regent Davenport, Chair Davenport, Regent Turner, yes and no. So when we get external funding from the National Science Foundation, for example, it comes with what we talk about called IDC. So this is the overhead that comes with the grant. That's designed, so most of the grant funds are designed to be spent on the grant activities that we're proposing to do, hold workshops, do research, hire postdocs, whatever that happens to be. But then there's some amount of funding that comes to the institution in order to pay for overhead, for keeping the lights on, for running the utilities, for maintaining the space, for all of those things. And indeed, as Vice President Tomlinson discussed in her presentation, sometimes colleges or other academic units are using their IDC funds to support activities that enhance the likelihood of getting the next grant, whether that's grant managers or help people help submit or to help do the processing or whatever it happens to be. And again, it's not something that it's not a permanent guarantee. On the other hand, when one has a 5-year grant, you have a pretty good sense of what that IDC is going to be over the next 5 years.
Thank you.
Is that what you were thinking of?
Mm-hmm.
Very good. And you may not know that we're fortunate to have a provost who has had top-level experience at the National Science Foundation. So,
and some excellent staff while I was there.
So any other questions or comments? See none. Thank you. We are adjourned.